Hello, YouTube. Oliver G here from the Earful Tower. What you're about to hear is an episode from the back catalogue of my podcast, but what you're about to see is exactly what we were talking about. This YouTube miniseries is about beautiful Paris walks, and in this case, we'll take you along Rue Montorgueil. I'm standing here with none other than Véro.
Bonsoir, Oliver. Bonsoir, tout le monde.
How are you?
I am well. It's a lovely evening.
It is actually a perfect evening. It's like there was pink in the sky.
Yeah, we had a sunset.
We had a sunset, and we sat down at the beautiful La Grille.
La Grille, you said it well.
And it feels like, I don't know, it feels like spring is in the air, so it's absolutely wonderful. And I thought you and I could talk a little about Rue Montorgueil as we walk from the south end to the north end. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, the sounds in the background, I want people to picture, if we pause for a second, right behind you there's a guy who's cleaning up his butcher shop, and to the left are the guys sweeping up after the ice from their fish shop.
That's what I'm smelling. I'm smelling fish.
I stopped you right in front of the fish shop. But it feels to me that this is a very local area. You said before we pressed record it's become a touristy area.
I think it's unique, the street, because it's both local, it's both favorite with locals and with tourists. It's been featured heavily on social media in recent years, so we have both. So it's, if you will, it's a place in Paris where locals meet tourists, or visitors, as I like to say.
Okay.
So it's nice.
But then, so the tourists are finding out about it through Instagram or something?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of places, I think content creators have featured it heavily in recent years.
Oh, well, no, I'm doing it now.
You're doing it now. I've done it as well. And so it's become, it's been put on the map, really.
Yeah.
And it's changed a lot. So it's interesting to see what's happened here.
Well, it's funny that you say that because we just did a half-hour walk for both of our Patreon communities.
Yes.
And we point out a lot of things that are new or that seem to have changed. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are a few things that have been here for seemingly hundreds of years.
True.
Does this do the balance well, this street, do you think?
I think it still does. But if it went a little heavier on the what I call new Paris, then it would really tip over.
In a bad way?
In a bad way, to me.
Yeah.
Not everybody agrees. People have spreadsheets and lists, and they love to see what's new in Paris. They come here to try new pastries and new food trends. Great. For me, when the old Paris goes, and in sections of the city it's growing... Oh,
he
was enthusiastic.
For anyone at home who doesn't think we're really recording on the street, there's your proof.
No, talk to me on my left ear now, because my right one is dead.
Let's walk and talk.
Okay, so yeah, I think in places in Paris, the old Paris is now almost gone, and I find that a little sad. I'm a bit of a nostalgic maybe, but I think at this point the street still has both.
Well, the
street still has both.
It's funny that you say that as we pass Stora.
Yes.
Because do you remember the year that's from?
I know it's in the 18th century under Louis XV.
Right.
So it might have been the first half of the 18th century for sure.
So anyone in any doubt that there are old things can rest assured, because
yes,
those pastries are old.
And like we said earlier to our patrons, I think we have Stora, the oldest pastry shop in Paris, and definitely on the street we have Le Rocher de Cancale, that restaurant created during the First Empire in the early 1800s, where people still eat oysters. We have other businesses that are still here from that time, and then we have all these new Paris pastry shops, and they're wonderful.
And it's not just pastry. As we walk on the left is a burger joint called Manhattan's without the E.
So yeah, that's really interesting. That name's. It must be somebody's name.
You think? No,
Don't you think?
I think it's like when someone creates a new startup in like the Nordic countries and they just leave out a few vowels to look cool. That's what I think is happening. Also, as we're walking right now, we're passing what you just mentioned, Au Rocher de Cancale.
Cancale, that's right.
The most beautiful blue restaurant. Anyone you'll be able to see will share pictures of that.
Oh, and the lights. Look at the lights. It's beautiful.
You know what? If we just move away from it, you know what I've always thought one of the most telltale signs that you're a tourist in Paris. This is quite obvious.
When you block the way.
No, when you carry a suitcase on wheels through the town.
Actually, there are two ways. They're carrying the suitcase, which you can all hear in the background, and there's also walking side by side and blocking the sidewalk for locals who are trying to get somewhere. Yeah. That's the sure sign of a tourist. You get very oblivious as a tourist. Well, you're having fun.
True, but I mean, that's when I noticed. For me, that's when I noticed that the tourists had come back after COVID, was when I started seeing the suitcases on the street.
Yeah.
But also I personally think, I think it's a really bad entrance to Paris is to take the subway and then walk 3 blocks to your apartment.
That's hard.
I think, even if you can stretch the budget to take a taxi from the airport, it makes your entry to the city so much better, because carrying a bag through the street like that...
Well, especially since Paris is one of the least accessible subway systems in Europe.
Especially with bags.
With bags. You really do not want to put yourself through that. And just for first impressions, because first impressions do matter, I totally agree with you. You are in Paris for a week, you're going to be spending money, just splurge on a cab from the airport and have him drop you off right outside your hotel or apartment rental.
Yeah.
Much better.
Even inside if they'll do it for you. Carry the bags, mate.
Go up the 5 floors.
When the other reason I stopped here is because, on a personal note, we're standing on the intersection of Montorgueil and Greneta, which is where I spent the first 2 years of my Paris life. It's with great nostalgia that I look down the street. Beautiful.
It is, and we said earlier, right, there is a plaque now with your name down that street. It's a famous street, Oliver, because you lived here once.
Number 48, I think, for anyone who wants to go find it.
How far down is it?
It's about 150 meters. It's not worth it.
You don't want to?
You're
being self-conscious
now. But I tell you, look at anyone that ever comes here and follows our footsteps, look at the cobblestone pattern, because it's quite unusual.
It's pretty.
Do you see the way they've done
a
wavy?
Wave. Yeah,
it's
there's
unusual.
a wave. Yeah.
And they've got it on Montorgueil as well. It's one of the special, I don't know how they did it.
So you see, in Greneta, the street we're on, so to me this screams old Paris, which is why I love it. Nobody famous except Oliver might have lived there. But when you see the Rocher de Cancale on the right-hand side, you see how concave, is that the word, concave?
Yeah, sure.
The facade is, that is how they used to be. So you still have those facades, and then you look down the street, you see this happening, and those lights that were probably here still in the 19th century. This is old Paris. And I love that right off of trendy Rue Montorgueil, you still have streets like Rue Greneta, where you make you feel like you're traveling back in time.
Amazing.
That's why it's special.
I think Balzac wrote about this street.
Balzac loved the street. It's mentioned very often in his books, and other Zola
How
as
do you
well.
know that? Know that? They mentioned this
Balzac?
street? Yeah.
Yes, because I read Balzac, and because I live in Tours in the Loire Valley, and this is his hometown. So Balzac is a big celebrity down there.
What, in Tours, is he?
In Tours. He was born in Tours. And so Balzac came back to the Touraine region where I live. So I know quite a bit about Balzac. Also, I studied him in high school.
Fancy that.
Yeah.
You know, I've been meaning to come down and visit you in Tours.
You should.
How long have you been there for?
I moved in the spring of 2021, so it will be 2 years.
So it's overdue that I have
It's overdue.
Visit.
You should come, and then we could do a fun live stroll there. There's a lot to see.
How's the internet down there?
Very good.
Yeah.
Well...
I say it with a smile because I know when I've been around France, sometimes it can be
the old stones, the old historic area can be a little challenging, like everywhere else in France. But I know the spots where the cell signal's good. I've done enough live streams down there. So.
And do you do tours in tours?
Yeah,
I call it tours because there's an S.
I know it's a mouthful. It's tours and tour. I do lead neighborhood tours in my city and cover the history of this glorious city, which is one of the most underrated cities in France. Most people don't know that it was the capital of France in the 15th century for about 80 years before Paris.
Everyone who follows you knows that.
Of course they do. I've done my best to share, the beautiful Loire Valley.
How far are you from Lake Chenonceau and the other chateaux?
Not far at all, and Tours makes a great gateway to the Loire Valley. It has a very central location, and so a lot of my patrons come and visit now. I take them on tours in the city, and then they go on trains and explore the area. We have so many beautiful chateaux, abbeys, places to see down there.
Everyone at home, if you want to see me and Véro collaborate on a tour kind of episode video, whenever you see pictures from this walk or whatever, write, "Go to Tours, Oliver," and I'll count them all up. And if it's over 40, I'll be on the next
Yeah.
Is there a TGV that goes
Yeah,
there?
TGV is very fast, an hour and 10 minutes or so, and you'll be
wow.
there. I know, it's practically the suburbs.
And how much does it cost?
It's a little pricey, I think, because of the TGV, but you can get a round trip for about 50 euros.
Now, that's a deal.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you should come.
Well, it's
and
not
I'll
up to
take
me.
you to my favorite square where the half-timbered homes, medieval homes. I think we have prettier medieval homes than Paris does. It's going to shock some people, but I'm standing my ground right here.
I'm a big fan of half-timbered house. Everybody knows that.
Well, there you go.
It's not up to me either. It's up to the commenters on social media. It's quite simple.
That is right. You have just asked them to react, and we will see what happens.
For anyone following at home on the map, wondering where we're up to Rue Saint-Sauveur in the second arrondissement, which, if we pause for a second, is a very beautiful street. Actually, like there's a lot of cool new bars and restaurants opening up down there. There was when I was living here, so I can only imagine that it's
all the side streets away from the Rue Montorgueil. That's what we were saying, are just a younger crowd. So lots of bars, lots of clothing shops as well, and that's a trend in Paris right now, isn't it? A lot of cool, trendy clothing stores, but the bars definitely. In fact, I spot a few right now. So
I don't even like. For anyone who hasn't been to Paris for a couple of years, I feel that you won't even recognize Montorgueil.
And that's the same about a lot of neighborhoods in Paris, in fact. Because I moved away less than 2 years ago now, and there are sections when I walk around and it's already changed.
Well, I mean, just right behind you where we're standing is the Café Biard, B-I-A-R-D. And if you've been to Paris in the last 5 years, you'd recognize it as a toy shop or a paper shop or a stationery shop.
Board games, whatever they were selling there for many years. But it used to be in the 1900s. Neither of us was born then. But in the 1900s, they had cafes. Biard had cafes all over Paris.
Yeah.
And the facade is protected, which is why the new bakery inside cannot change it.
And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because it's such a beautiful facade with mosaic titles
blue,
at the top,
blue.
beautiful blue panels.
And gold mosaic.
Yeah. It rivals Concal down the road as one of the prettiest facades on the street.
It does. And so now, if you're wondering, Jeffrey Cagne is here. He's a pastry chef who worked at Storer, which I think we mentioned.
Yes.
The oldest pastry shop on the street. He worked there for about 15, 20 years. And then he opened his own shop just last December here. And he has others in Paris as well. He does incredible creations. Very tasty pastries.
I might have to check that out on the way home.
You will have
Let's
to.
Keep walking. When we started the YouTube video that we did, we started at the very top, the north end of this street, where there's a Starbucks and a McDonald's. As a French woman, how does that make you feel?
Not so good.
Why?
I think Starbucks serves a purpose. They've come in handy whenever I traveled, especially around the United States. But I like to say that if I lived in the United States after 23 years, it wasn't to live in France the way Americans do. So Starbucks and McDonald's, I don't tend to patronize while I'm in France, no.
I remember when the McDonald's opened up here, there were petitions that everyone dropped in the letterboxes saying, block the McDonald's.
Oh, it was worse than petitions. There was a guy, a farmer named José Bové. Have you heard of him? B-O-V-E.
Monsieur Beauvais,
Monsieur Beauvais.
Oui, absolument.
He actually staged revolts or rebellions against McDonald's, destroyed a McDonald's restaurant. I think it was somewhere in the center of France, and he took the people hostage. I mean, it was a big deal. They really tried to stop it.
What? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
I was kidding. I hadn't heard about him before. This sounds serious.
I could tell you were joking. José Bové, look him up. He became a politician later on, and he's a guy who's an ecologist, so a Green member of the Green Party, and he was one of the strongest opponents of McDonald's when they started here. I believe it was in the 70s or 80s.
He wasn't very successful.
Well, clearly. McDonald's, France is the second most profitable market for McDonald's in the world after the United States. And I will be honest, that makes me a little sad.
Really? You know what will make you even more sad?
What?
I know you haven't seen the third season of Emily in Paris yet, but I have.
No, I won't watch it.
I've
seen enough.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for anyone watching. They do a collaboration with McDonald's. They have something.
You are kidding.
It's called like the Emily or the Baguette or something like that.
Oh, a Mac Emily.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
sweet.
Maybe I made that up. I think it might have been.
Is it pink?
I think it was McBaguette. But it was like, I was like, whoa, this is, McDonald's is a sponsor of this show. Like, they really...
McDonald's, I've got to say, has the absolute best marketing. I love marketing. I used to work in marketing. So McDonald's has the best marketing and advertising team probably in France and has had for the last 3 or 4 decades. If you compare with your Disney, when they arrived in France in the 90s, who did everything wrong, they should have learned from McDonald's.
What do you mean? What happened when they did everything wrong? Can you summarize it?
Oh, it's hard to summarize, but Disney basically came with an American model and tried to, set it up in France and failed on many levels. There were strikes, the staff rebelled. By the time they realized they were doing it wrong, they replaced the management team, everything, and now it's called Disneyland. They even had to change the name because it was such a bad, your Disney was not successful. Had they taken a training course from the McDonald's marketing team, who is so good at talking to French people and other local cultures, with references they understand, they would have done much better.
Wow. The things we learn on a walk with Véro, I always say it. Let's keep walking.
So hats off to McDonald's, huh?
Yeah,
what
fair
they do,
enough.
they do well.
We were talking, I don't know if it was privately after the Patreon video just then, but let's walk on the street away from these noisy youths.
Youths.
we were talking about the differences between the famous market streets.
Yes.
And I've been quite vocal in saying Montorgueil is my favorite when I lived here, and then Rue des Abbesses in Montmartre was my favorite.
And then the next one will be your favorite when you move.
When I move, wherever that may be, will be the next.
Because there'll be a market street, you just know it.
I know. But currently it's Rue Claire in the 7th.
I know, you love Rue Claire.
Love Rue
you
Claire.
and Rick Steves love Rue Claire.
What about you? What do you find to be your favorite market street in the city of Paris?
The long answer, sorry.
No, we need a short answer because we're nearing the end of the street.
Okay, well, if it's for me, it would be Rue de Lévis or Rue Daguerre. Rue de Lévis in the 17th, where I used to live, or Rue Daguerre in the 14th arrondissement by Denfert Rochereau. If it's for visitors who want to experience a market street, I would recommend Montorgueil because it encapsulates French and Parisian life.
I agree with you, and I think the two, Lévis and Daguerre, they're off the tourist track.
Totally. And they're not pretty. They're not postcards. They're not trying to be, though. Even there, I've got to say, old Paris slowly but surely is losing ground. And you can see it.
But do you find Rue Claire to be postcardy?
Yes.
Yeah, in a good way? No.
Well, if you like postcards, if you like Emily in Paris, you will like Rue Claire, I guess.
Good. I mean, I'm not a huge Emily in Paris fan, but I do like Rue Claire.
Yeah.
As we near the end of Rue Montorgueil, or is it? I notice you've been saying La Rue Montorgueil.
La Rue Montorgueil.
Is it like a respectable way
No,
to...
I just say La Rue Montorgueil, La Rue Claire. Okay. I just say La, I guess.
Well,
look, one of the round buildings you love so much.
It is.
The domes.
Yeah.
The late 19th century domes.
So at the end of Montorgueil, Vero's pointing out across the road there is one of those beautiful dome buildings.
Yes.
It's not. It's a bit of a weird one. Perfectly.
It's a little elongated.
Yeah.
But the clouds behind it, though.
Yeah, we picked a magic night for it. But we've come to the edge of the big... you can probably hear the big road at home there. Etienne Marcel.
Réaumur.
That's the hardest one to pronounce.
Réaumur.
Yeah, I know.
He was a prefect of Paris that nobody ever talks about. Everybody talks about Haussmann.
Because no one can pronounce his name.
That would be a good reason.
But we've made it to the end of the street. And I'll end on this question for you. For tourists coming to Paris and hoping to experience a popular street like this, but who are maybe a bit shy, they don't feel they know the French culture, they don't know how to sit or order a beer or anything, do you have any cheats for people to feel more at ease on a street like this?
Yeah, well, first thing, the French have an expression, lèche vitrine, window licking. So that doesn't only apply to shopping and looking at windows to decide what you're going to buy. This can also apply to a street like Rue Montorgueil, when you're trying to get your bearings and get used to the surroundings and check out maybe a cafe where you'd like to sit down. So what I would say is walk the length of the street once, spot a couple of cafe terraces where you'd like to sit, spot the boulangerie where you'd like to buy a croissant, spot the fromagerie where you'd like to buy cheese, grow your confidence, build your confidence, walk the street back, and the second time just go inside and watch what locals do. If there is a line, watch what locals do. Use the magic word, bonjour, no matter what you ask for, say bonjour, and you've heard this before, I know, and then go for it. Jump in.
So basically do a recon mission.
Go
up and down the street,
yes.
Lick everything once.
Yes.
And then go back and do it for real.
Yes. There's so many cafes here. Did you see how many cafes are alongside the street now?
It's frightening.
It's frightening. So there's a lot to choose from. So find a terrace or a table that looks appealing. It's not too crowded. And then build your confidence and grab that table. It's yours. And there you go. You enter Parisian life. That's how you do it.
And on that note, Véro, I want to go and do the exact same thing with you. Shall we have a glass of wine?
I think so. I think we've earned it.
Well, let's do it.
Absolument.
So there you have it. Once again, Rue Montorgueil with Véro from France with Véro. Vero. It's all linked down below. Follow her on social media. You can become a patron of hers as well and see all the stuff that she's sharing about Paris and France too. I said that I'd come with a story about the canes. Here is what it is. If you've missed on social media all the videos and all the posts about those magical canes from last week, not only have you been missing out, but you've been missing out on some of the comments. And one that really caught my eye that I want to read is from Rachel Jane Fowler. And she said, I thought this week's episode was not, she's referring to the cane episode, I thought this week's episode was not going to be my cup of tea. Ha. I was intrigued, and then I arrived home to see my parents in New Orleans, and I had a revelation. I'd been passing old canes every trip up and down their stairs. Little did I know, one of these canes had a hidden gadget. Were it not for you and Chloe, no one in the house would have known it was there. And so she'd sent a little video with 4 or 5 canes, ornate, decorative-looking canes, but there was one with a sort of round globe-shaped top on it, made of maybe brass, and it looks like it's been unscrewed to reveal what I think is called the Toulouse-Lautrec gadget, which is like a long, it's like a test tube with a cork in the top that was used probably to smuggle a little bit of absinthe in wherever you're going. I wonder if there was also the little glass with it like there was in the cane shop. But how cool. It actually makes me want to go and look at canes in old garage sales or brocantes, the flea markets in Paris, to see if I can find a similar hidden gadget. But it's kind of a metaphor for not just for canes or Paris or this show, everything really. You never know what you'll find if you just dare to look. That could be the motto of this very show. On that note, I'll leave it to Press Maxon, our resident musician, to take us out with a little bit of music. Thanks everybody for listening. I'll be back again next week with another episode. Merci beaucoup and au revoir.